Hi everyone, this is Miss S from Excelsior Charter School, and today we're going to be covering Geometry Quarter 1, Quiz 3. So just like all my quizzes, I'm going to change the values, but the questions will remain the same. All right, so we'll get started here with question number 1. In the figure, it says the measure of angle DIA is 105, and it wants us to choose the true statements. So I'm a visual person, so I would put 105 right here in angle DIA. So remembering that vertical angles are always across and always congruent, that would make this one here also 105. And remembering that the angles that aren't vertical to 105 are also vertical to each other and adjacent and supplementary to the 105. So I would take DIB and BIC are going to be supplementary, so they're going to add up to 180. So I would take 180 and I would subtract 105, and what I would get is that this angle is 75. And because that angle is 75, so is that angle. So now we can answer our questions here. Angle DIB is 75. That is true. Angle CIB is 105. Also true. Angle CIB, this one here, and DIB here are adjacent. Yes, they share a line and a vertex. That is a true statement. And let me erase those two lines real quick. So we'll mark that down. And angles AIC, this one here, and DIB here are vertical. Yes, that's true. They are. And so we'll erase those lines real quick. Mark that one down. And angles DIC, that's this whole thing there, and CIB, this little piece right here, those are not adjacent. They're actually overlapping. So this one would get the X, but the rest of them are all true. All right, our next question says, what geometric term applies to these two angles? I have an angle that's 146 and an angle that is 34. If I take 146 and add it with 34, what I get is 180, making these two angles supplementary. Using the law of detachment to draw a conclusion from the given statements. If it's not possible, write not possible. So the statement is, if I can afford to buy dinner, then I can go out to eat. So here's our if, our hypothesis, and then our then is our conclusion. I can go out to eat. According to the law of detachment, if you have your hypothesis, you can assume the conclusion. So it tells us, our next statement here is that I can go out to eat. So this is a conclusion, not a hypothesis. So this is not possible. Maybe you can go out to eat not because you can afford to buy dinner, but maybe because someone's going to buy it for you. Who's to say? So this one would be not possible. You would need to have the hypothesis in order to assume the conclusion. For our next one, name the property of congruence that justifies this statement. So we have, if a segment AB is congruent to segment CD, then segment CD is congruent to segment AB. So here they switch spots left and right, and whenever we switch, that's the symmetric property. The transitive property of congruence states that if segment GH is congruent to segment IG, and segment IG is congruent to segment KL, then what can you assume? Notice how we have IG here in both of them, so we can actually, they're both GH and KL are congruent to IG, so we can cut out the IG and we can say that segment GH is congruent to segment KL. Determine the value of X. These two are vertical angles, and vertical angles are always congruent, so we can set 9x minus 11 equal to 8x plus 17, and then we'll solve it for x using algebra. Like I've done here, and what you get is that x equals 18. And since they asked us for the value of x, that would be our answer. This next question wants us to determine the values of x and y. There are many ways that you can do this. For this one, I actually like to start with the vertical angles. So this one here is 115, and this one here is also 115. So 8x plus 11 must equal 115, and then we solve that using algebra. And what I end up with is x equals 13. And then to solve for 5y, I have to remember that these two lines here are supplementary. They add up to 180. So 115 plus the 5y equals 180. And then I solve this using algebra. And I get, again, that y equals 13. And since they asked us for the values of x and y, that's all we have to worry about for this question. And for our last question here, because questions 9 and 10 are just repeats of other questions, it says angles ABC and angles DEF are complementary angles. Remember, supplementary means it adds up to 180. Complementary means it adds up to 90. So it says angle ABC equals D plus 2, and angle DEF is 2D minus 11, and they want us to find the measure of each angle. So we have to add them up to get to 90. So D plus 2 plus 2D minus 11 needs to equal 90. And then I'll solve this for D using algebra. And I'll get D equals 33, but it doesn't ask me what the value of D is. It asks me for the measure of the angles. So I'm going to take this D equals 33, and I'm going to plug it in for both of these. So for angle ABC, I have D plus 2. So 33 plus 2 is 35. And for angle DEF, I have to plug that in, and I will get 2 times 33 minus 11, which will give me 55. And you can double check because 35 plus 55 does add up to 90. So I know that those are the right answers. I hope you guys do great. Good luck, everybody.